Okay, we're live on Facebook.
Good morning, Nakisha. Good to see you.
Hello, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Every time I look at you.
Should we get started?
Sure.
Yes. Hey, Wendy.
Ladies and more ladies. So hello, good morning. My name is Shiloh Todorov. I am with the Matriots PAC on staff, and I'm so delighted to see so many of you here this morning for our Q&A with Representative Juanita Brent. We're so delighted to have her. I'm going to hand this off very quickly to our co-hosts this morning, Julie Harris and Pamela Gray Mason. But I wanted to just take a few minutes to tell you how we're going to conduct ourselves this morning. And we're all like Zoom pros, so I'm sure you already have a clue about this. And then just give you a brief introduction to who the Matriots are, and then we'll get into our Q&A. So I would love it if you could all stay on mute until we get to the Q&A portion. And then if you would use the chat function to let us know that you have a question, we'll unmute you and let you ask your question live as opposed to type it in, right? So plan on that. And Pam and Julie have a number of questions to get us started, but we want to hear yours as well. So don't be shy. I know you won't. So I want to just give you a little overview of who the Matriots PAC is. I know a number of you know, because I see some friendly faces on this morning who have already become members of our PAC. But we are a political action committee that is 2.5 years old, and we have one mission: to elect more women to public office in Ohio who will promote an economy in which women can thrive and prosper. And we're delighted here this morning. I know at least Representative Brent and Cheryl Stevens have received our endorsement. I'm sorry if there are others on that I haven't yet had a chance to greet. But we will, on July 4th, announce our general election slate of candidates. And we have your email addresses now, so we'll be sure to put those in your inbox on Independence Day and look forward to that. Our central belief is that when women lead, Ohio prospers. And we are addressing the need that women are significantly underrepresented in public office in Ohio. My colleague, Kim Crowfoot-Swade, is posting a couple of things into the chat right now, and I'll follow up with those in email as well. The first is the values statement, our About Us, which you can read and get to know us better. But we have the basic tenet that we want to help elect female candidates who will promote policies that allow women to be economically stable and have access to health care. And this only can underscore what our families need. Women's policies are, in fact, human policies, as we all know, right? And so we're really trying to drive at having more women in office who will create and lead these sorts of policies. And there are only 29% of Ohio's 17,412 elected seats that are held by women today. And we know that because we did original research to find out from school board to governor how many women are serving in office in Ohio. And Kim has now put the link to that, and you can spend a little time with that. I would show it to you on the screen, but it's a little tedious to look at. So you'll want to open that and find out how your county is doing and find out overall how the state of Ohio is doing. So through the lens of our values, not through the lens of a particular party platform, we endorse women. We are currently in the process of interviewing 88 women who have sought our endorsement for the November election. And we give them money, we give them a network of people just like you across the state of Ohio, and we give them encouragement on their way to office. I do just want to play one video from one of our board members kind of explaining why we are nonpartisan, and then we'll dig into the Q&A here and get started. This is Rita McNeil Danish.
Good parents once told me, you're either part of the solution or you're part of the problem. That couldn't be more true today, here in 2020. There are a number of things that affect our daily lives that are decisions made by politicians. And you have to engage and decide that you want to be part of the solution rather than being part of the problem. But what's also important is the reality that COVID-19 didn't really know race, it didn't know party, it didn't know gender. And so the Matrix creates an opportunity for you to, one, get engaged and be part of the solution rather than part of the problem. But it also is nonpartisan. And that becomes important because as we engage in politics and we deal with these issues that are affecting us every day, the partisanship shouldn't be there. It needs to go away. And the reality is we have power as we come together, not as we stand apart. I encourage you, I invite you to join the Matrix.
All right, so with that, I want to welcome our co-hosts, Julie and Pam, to say a little bit about themselves and then to kick off our conversation with Juanita. Julie, Pam?
Okay. I am Julie Harris, and I'm thrilled to be here this morning with you all. Thank you for coming. I am an Ohioan by birth, and I work as a lawyer for Lubrizol Corporation in Wickliffe, Ohio, and I live in Beechwood, and I'm thrilled to be here this morning with Pam and Representative Brent in Shiloh.
I am Pam Gray Mason. I too am excited and thrilled to be with such a fantastic audience of powerful women and a phenomenal speaker, Representative Juanita Brent. I see several faces, and I welcome all of you, and I thank you for coming. Let me just take a few minutes to tell you why I am a Matriot. Simply, I believe in the Matriot's mission to get women elected. I am unapologetic about getting women elected. And although I have never ran for political office, I have helped many females get elected. Simply put, if we work together, we can get more women elected. I thank you again for your attention and just coming aboard just to show your support. With that, go ahead, Julie. Go ahead, Julie.
I was just going to echo why I became a Matriot is really was said so well by what the chair of the board of the Matriot said. And I'm really influenced by what Ruth Bader Ginsburg says, which is women belong in all places where decisions are being made. And it's so clear that in Ohio, women are not in the room in the numbers that they need to be in the room. And I believe that the dialogue changes when a room of all men adds one woman. But I think that the dialogue doesn't really change and the conversation doesn't really change until gender balance is achieved. And so I think that's why Ohio can struggle with really important issues. For example, our infant mortality rate in Ohio is at the bottom of the barrel right now. We're much higher than the national rate, and we're actually among the bottom 10. And so I think it's so important to try to change the conversation that we're having. And I think the Matriots, for me, gave me an opportunity to put my money where my mouth was, and a very efficient platform to support issues that are important to me. And I think one thing that was really influential to me was how local it is. The Matriots is interested in school boards, city councils, state reps, but it's, and the reason they do that is because that's how most women get engaged with politics. And that's not really something I knew before getting involved in the Matriots, that, you know, you don't just wake up one day. I mean, I knew it kind of, but in the kind of a superficial way, but you don't wake up one day and become a senator of, you know, the state of Ohio. You start small, you start with city council. And so that's really where the support is needed. But I hope today you will enjoy what you learn, enjoy asking Representative Brent some questions, and join the Matriots.
Thank you, Julie. With that being said, it is my pleasure to introduce State Rep Juanita Brent. State Rep Brent is an amazing woman and a great legislator and a great smile too. Whether she's visiting her local fire department, police department, school, nursing home, doing town hall, or just one-on-one with her residents, she's compassionate. She gets the job done. And all within the blink of an eye, you look up and she's in Columbus doing the work. And she just told us she's been in Columbus for quite a while. She's a fierce, compassionate legislator. And without going through all of the many pieces of legislation she has presented, it's all for her constituents. I present to you Juanita Brent, District 12. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I had to think about, I was like, who is she talking about? But
you.
I so appreciate being someone who was endorsed by the matriarchs and someone who, even before becoming endorsed, always really respect the mission of getting more women elected on all levels of government. We would love to have more women elected here within the State House, on both sides of the aisle, and it's just very important that women know that they belong here.
Yes. Let me ask you something, Rep. Brent. What does the matriarch's endorsement mean to you?
It means a lot, honestly. And I don't know if I told them this. I actually kind of cried. Like, it was a couple little tears that came, because I received a lot of respect from people who are trying to make a difference. And there's not too many groups that are out there that are trying to promote women and they put their money where their mouth is. And so we are in a place where it's harder for women to raise money. It's harder for women to get that first step. And, you don't have to ask a man to run for office. He just does it. With women, you might have to ask her 1 or 2 or 3 times to run for office. And so this group is encouraging women to run for office at all levels. And so that's why it was just very encouraging. We need more groups like this.
I see we have a message in the chat room. You want to take it, Julie?
Yeah, Deborah Coleman has said that we're talking about the resignation of Director Acton. And do we have a reaction, or is a moment of consternation and sadness about this? Because I think we can certainly look at her role as an example of where we felt really good about women's involvement in policy, because it was protecting Ohioans. So Representative Brent, do you want to comment on her resignation?
I'm really sad about Dr. Amy Acton resigning. For one, she's actually a doctor, and all the previous director of health and the person who's stepping in her role right now, none of them have been doctors. And that makes a world of a difference when you talk about the public health, you talk about infectious disease, you talk about epidemiology. She was a subject matter expert of all of this. So she was more than qualified. She wasn't just a woman. She was a person who was more than qualified to handle this job. And we as women have to protect each other. And I know even some of the ladies here at the Ohio House, we sent her cards, we called her, we emailed her, and we reached out to let her know that she was being supported. But it was so much hatred that went to her. It was just unimaginable. And I know, I can only imagine that she probably was trying to be protective for her own mental health as well as for her family, because what was happening to her, the protesting, the people harassing her security of her and her family, it should never be happening to anyone doing their job.
Yeah, sure.
And I say amen to that too. As you indicated, we should take a moment just to support her, um, support each other. I know she was doing a good job. I liked Rep Brent. I'm sad when I heard the news as well.
For sure.
Thank you. We have another, and you guys can continue to ask your questions. But Julie and myself, we do have questions for Rep Brent, but we'd like to hear
Sure.
from our audience.
Yeah.
We have another one. Can you tell us the status of protecting reproductive freedom in the General Assembly? And that came from Marcia Silver.
So that is being attacked every day. Every day there's a bill coming in from the Senate or from the House to attack reproductive rights. It's interesting that the people who are coming out with these bills cannot have children themselves. And I know in my heart, if someone said that a man, if he was, doing something by himself, to himself, and we made it illegal for him to touch himself, they would be mad. So for somebody to tell me that I can't decide when I want to have a baby, decide when I don't want to have a baby, decide who I want to have a baby with and the terms I want to do, that is ridiculous. And it takes a lot for somebody to decide upon that. We have another bill that just came over from the Senate that's about to be introduced, where if a woman's under 18, they don't want her to have the say-so to be able to get, what is it, the epidemic, what is it called when you're?
Epidural.
Epidural.
Yes. They do not want her to be able to determine to get an epidural if she's under 18, because they want her to remember her experience so she will be less likely to get pregnant at a young age again.
What?
The
Wow.
action
Wow.
of people.
It's
Yeah.
so important to talk about this and learn about it.
And
I know
this came from Senator Huffman, the same Senator Huffman who just got fired from his ER doctor job.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, Representative Brent, I know that you are doing a lot of work to protect the right to vote in Ohio recently. And we got a question from Sonia Winter in the chat room about voter suppression. Would you talk to us about your efforts and what we can do?
Yes.
She's been busy.
So one of the things we're really fighting for, when the federal government gave us the CARES Act, we can use that CARES Act money to provide prepaid envelopes for absentee applications as well as absentee ballots. That money needs to be used for that. Right now, the state of Ohio is sitting on tons of money right now that we could be preparing to use for election. Also, making sure absentee applications are available online. That is a game changer. People should not have to still print out stuff and sign it. You should be able to do all of this online. Also, it's pushing for more early vote locations. Cuyahoga County, Franklin County, Hamilton County, which is our most populous counties in the state, have tons of people. Why do we have one early voting population? The early voting location should be based off of how many people you have. So if we have more than 1 million people within our county, or however many millions of people we have, we need more than one location. So we need to right size that option when it comes to people having accessibility here within the state of Ohio.
But I thought the bill was on the floor so far as those recommendations. I think you were one of the co-sponsors.
So that bill that was on the floor was House Bill 680, and I was not a co-sponsor of that. I actually voted against
it. Oh, I'm sorry. Right, you were against it. You were the fiery one.
Very heavy because it wanted to take away all of those things. It does not. The House Bill 680 would not allow the state to pay for prepaid postage. It would not allow people to. People will have to pay for everything. They would not receive notifications about the upcoming election. They would not have those additional early voting locations. It would not allow the CARES Act money to be used for our elections, period. So it's actually taken away day. So this new bill that just passed, HB 60, will actually take away that early voting on that Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. The souls to the polls, that wouldn't exist. So it's a huge barrier that's being occurred with House Bill 680. So I actually co-sponsor House Bill 687, which
That's
will
it. Okay.
do all those things that I was just telling you about.
Thank you.
What can each of us do, Representative Brent, to assist in efforts to prevent voter suppression this fall?
Well, the biggest thing is we have to educate people about getting ready to vote. When I was going through this past primary, I literally bought and paid for myself 6,000 absentee applications. I went to different apartment complexes and just left the boxes there. With the situation of the pandemic, you can't always be in a place where you can just pass it out individually, but where you know large amounts of people are going to be, like an apartment complex, they always have a lobby. And I literally made a sign, had it printed at Kinko's, and it said, absentee application right here. Like, if you want to vote, grab one of these. So we have to make sure it's accessible, and the government is not trying to do that. It's not. So it's not trying to save to make sure that all of us in Ohioans can vote. We have to do that ourselves and be creative on how we get the information out. So even if you have to go mail some out, drop some off on your neighbors, make sure you get as many people as possible with the absentee application.
Perfect. Let's fast forward. I know you've been busy because all of us have. What is your, tell us what racism being a public health crisis means.
It means a lot. The first thing you have to do when I think about racism as a public health crisis is using the lens of racial equity and everything that we do. I sit as the ranking member on agriculture and rural development. And so people always ask me like, hey, Juanita, you live in Cleveland. Why are you so interested in agriculture? Because I said agriculture is relevant for all of us. Everybody eats. And when you look at the economy and where our tax base comes from Ohio, 70% of our money comes from farming. So we got to look where the money is, and wherever the money is, that's where women need to be, sitting at the table, having discussions. So we just had a bill to revise the laws for the county and independent fairs. And so if I'm looking at the bill from a racial equity lens, I know that in 2015, the state fair updated its rules to say it prohibited any type of Confederacy paraphernalia. So I added an amendment, I tried to add an amendment to this bill that would also ban any Confederacy memorabilia for county and independent fairs. Now, it was voted down along party lines, but it goes to the point that the Confederacy, which Ohio was not a part of, stood for a group of treasonous people who tried to take over the United States because they wanted to keep slavery. Now, it's a lot of things that people might have done, and I just say we have a difference of opinions, but that is a symbol of oppression within the United States. And we could not continue to have county and independent fairs in Ohio in 2020 that have flags or any type of symbol that makes people of color, people who are Black, descendants of slaves, to feel like this is still okay. So it got voted down on the House floor last night, party lines. And it's really just sad. Well, excuse me, we had one Republican. We had one Republican who voted for my amendment. So let me take that back. It was one Republican. And he's one of their Republicans of color. He's from India. Because according to the Confederacy, I would still be somebody's slave. And that's what they fought for. And if in 2020, someone wants to wave that flag, they don't belong here. And that's treasonous action. So every time we do something, we have to look at it, racism, in all events as a racial equity lens of how does this affect people? How does it particularly affect the disproportionate Black people within the state of Ohio? So even when we talked about infant mortality has actually gone down. So we've actually improved upon our numbers in Ohio, but it's gone up within Black African-American people. So what we have to say as a state is that what we're doing is not working for the people who need it the most. So we need to right size our program to help those that where it's not working. And so that's when you talk about racism as a public health crisis, is dealing with situations and making sure it's right and it fits for all people of Ohio, not just some.
Well said, Rep. Brent. Go ahead, Julie.
Yeah, I want to just nip back to revised Senate Bill 680 and see if you have comments. We have a question from Deborah Coleman about whether the revised 680 bill will survive.
So it's going to go over to the Senate, and I don't believe it's going to survive. We are going to election season, and the Senate had their own version, and then we always like to call it the fight of the Larrys. There's the Speaker of the House, who is Larry Householder, and there's the Senate President, who is Larry Ophoff, and they both have their own views of what elections should be. So the Senate President, his views are similar to the governor, where they want to make it more accessible. They want to have the early voting locations. The the Speaker of the House wants to take away those things. So it should die over in the Senate.
Perfect. We have a question from Emily T. She says, can you provide an update on legislation around public education, specifically how the voucher system will proceed or not in coming school year?
Oh, that's a very interesting conversation. You want to see people rumble and a fight break out? Talk about voucher programs in the state of Ohio. Mm-hmm. And education has been our long-term Achilles tendon within Ohio because, for one, we don't fund it properly. So we have a lot of underfunded public schools because we're not equitable with our funding. So naturally, if you're a parent, you want the best option for your child. And sometimes the public school that might be in your district might not be the best option, but you can't afford it. And so now we have the voucher system. So I totally get why parents want to go to the voucher system, but our system cannot afford it. And I'm gonna use this example, and forgive me ahead of time before I tell you this. I always looked at this system as I'm married to the system. But in another house, I also have children in that house too. So I have children that are in my house, and that's the public school. And then I also have children that are in another house, and that's the voucher system. So my income now, I have one income, but it's being split amongst two houses. But when I started my income, it was not meant to be split among two houses. And that's what's happening right now. So right now, there has been made sure that there will be funding for the voucher system. It will be based off of people who were already in there, or also for students whose older siblings were already in the voucher system, to make sure that they can receive the vouchers too. So that has been expanded in that aspect. But the way we're going as a state, we cannot continue paying for a system. We need to come up with other ways to fund that. No matter if you are looking at other revenue streams, but we need to figure out other ways to fund education within our state, or we're setting ourselves up for bankruptcy.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
We have a question from Shan Fowler. If we are in a Democratic district, how do we influence the legislators who aren't voting the way we want?
Ooh, yes. Okay. I'm going to tell you what my Republican colleagues, if you're in a Democratic area, they cannot stand getting emails and phone calls or people showing up. I was sitting in committee and I was sitting next to one of my colleagues. We always get together. There's a little coffee place in the building next door. We will always go get coffee together, and then we will walk to committee. And he was like, Rep, he was like, I just had hundreds of emails from all these random people about this issue. And I was like, well, what's the issue? What's the problem? He was like, I don't know. He's like, my aide and I've been up all night. He's like, I guess I just need to maybe vote along with the people. The people.
The people.
Your voice has so much power, so much power. You can't ignore the power of the people. You can't ignore people that show up. I'm here in Columbus. You know what's right outside my window? People protesting. You cannot ignore the power of the people. So even if you don't live in somebody's district and they are talking crazy, go find some people that live over there. Go find 100 people and get them to go say something to that legislator. So there's so much power. Do not forget there's power. And people get scared. I walk around, I talk to my colleagues. I get scared. I remember one time there was a bill where we had 200 people by email contact my office. All of us reps have one person that works for us. You might get like a page and an intern, and they come work in and out of the office. But for the most part, you have one person. So you get 200 emails about one topic. That makes you nervous. And we want to make them nervous. So keep resisting, keep showing up. If there's an opportunity for you to show up for a committee and offer testimony, show up for that. If there's an opportunity for you to email, do that too, and call. Thank you.
That's so inspiring to hear, because I think a lot of us think that it's just an email going into the void, and that we're not making much of an impact. On the call, I know that we have people of very different levels of engagement with political activism. So in addition to showing up, writing those emails, getting a group of people to do that together, what would you say to somebody who's just starting to nibble around the edges at political activism? What other things can they do?
This is what I just told one of the young ladies I spoke to last night. She said, I'm new to this. Start listening. You know, most of the time with the state house, even with our local city councils, they allow you to watch those meetings now. You have to know the rules to play the game. So reading up on what type of legislation is being updated, what people are saying, what people are doing, just educate yourself first. The worst thing you can do to yourself is show up to a party, a masquerade, and not be prepared for the event. So that's what we all have to do, is get ourselves ready and educating ourselves about the process of what's going on.
I like that, Rep. Brent. You know, you have to have some planning. You just can't say, I want to run. You have to look for support systems such as the matriarchs and other people, just to see, you know, get a feel for what you're actually getting into. Thank you. Shiloh, we're at 9:05. I know you wanted to take the poll, the quick poll on how the crowd participates in politics. Did you want to do that at this time?
Let's do that. I'm just curious how everybody, Julie's question set that up perfectly. How are you currently participating in sort of civic life? And I'm going to put this poll up, and you can fill in as many of these as apply to you. Go ahead. Can you see that?
We can see it.
Okay. Everyone's a voter. That's very good. Wow, 90% have given a political contribution. 70% are volunteering. And we've got some folks running for office, serving in office, want to run for office. So that's great. Thank you. We've got a good group of active people all across the spectrum.
We are women. It should be. I guess at this time we'll take a couple of more questions. I know I've gotten a couple of texts that people that are on board. They have the luxury of being in their PJs. Most of us look like we're not. We're sipping our coffee and tea or whatever. But we'll take a couple of more because I know some people do have some other commitments. This is from Emily. What state and local budgets in duress for the remainder of this year? What are your priorities to maintain funding within Ohio? And where do you suggest we engage to help maintain funding for health, education, and other critical public services? Rep, should I give it to you one at a time?
I'm gonna give a point, and then you're gonna give me the rest of the question. So our priority has to be stabilizing our budget. Our priority has to be making sure that our public health is taken care of so we can get people back to working. Our priority has to make sure that people have access to internet so they can work from home. Believe it or not, I have constituents who do not have access to broadband in my district, and I have part of Cleveland. And so they're not able to work, and they're working from the parking lot of a library. So when we talk about maintaining our budget, we have to be worried about just people accessing a job and also making improvements to our transportation, public transit system. One thing I was really hurt about was the major cuts that were made to our public education. There were cuts being made to the two greatest assets we have here within our state, our education and to our healthcare. And when we could have made a lot of cuts in a lot of different places of our state, we are doing things that's going to affect our future, elected officials, our future matriarchs, our future doctors, leaders, when you talk about making cuts to education, and also when it comes to Medicaid. So I'm very hurt by that. And I believe there could have been different conversations or different things that could have been cut besides that. So we are feeling it to be rough, but I know it's going to be even more rough because we still have a huge deficit that people are not going to think so much about until it becomes next year. And that road you wanted paved, your local government is not going to receive the money to be able to pave it. That school that you were looking to get rebuilt won't get rebuilt. The local community center that you love so much, they might have to close their door because the state won't be giving them any funding. So we're all going to be feeling this. And so we all just have to demand for more on where cuts need to go within our state.
Okay, go ahead, Julie.
I was going to ask a question from Sonia Winter. What is the best source of information about these bills and legislative activity that we should be aware of with the, changes at the Cleveland Plain Dealer? I think a lot of us struggle to figure out where to go to get good information.
So I'm gonna just tell you what my office uses, and someone might ask, what does my office use every day? ohiohouse.gov. Literally is that website. So if you go to ohiohouse.gov, you can look at our committee schedule. You can look to see who's on the committee. You can look at what bills are coming and scheduled for that day. Also, I really go, if you want to know what's going on within our state or things going on, the Columbus Dispatch, they are still a regular newspaper that's still very much printed, and they talk about a lot of things that the local Cleveland Plain Dealer does not have the luxury of doing because of lack of sales. So the Columbus Dispatch is available online. You can even follow them on Facebook, and they give you a lot of good information if you want to know what's going on here at the State House very quickly.
Great. Thanks.
So I think, do we have any other people that like to go to the chat room and ask Representative Brent anything? Well, I have a question or two. Where are we with the protest? How has that affected you and your colleague?
Well, I personally love seeing the protests myself, and that might sound interesting for some people to hear me say that. I might not be supporting everything that's come with the protesting, but I really do support the protesting, because what a protest represents is a group of unheard people. And so we as a government, that is an alarm to say people are not being heard, they are not being included, they are not being treated fairly, and we need to take notice. So this is not just a protest, this civil unrest is not just happening in one part of the world, because people keep on talking about George Floyd. That wasn't even in Ohio, but we've had so many George Floyds within our community, of a Tamir Rice, of a Tanisha Adams, or, just Eric Garner. I mean, we could just go on and on and on down the list of people that we've seen in these situations on video, that it's just time to make a change within our culture of people as a whole. And it just lets you know that, oppression is very real. The toxic subculture of our police is very real. And that is not saying that, you know, policing is bad. And I'm not even saying that you need to defund it, but the subculture of policing is very real. So as we talk about the protesting, we need to look back. In 2017, the state of Ohio got rid of our excessive force database. And someone right now is probably sitting at home and saying, what is that? That is a database, it's a public database to keep track every time a police officer does some type of excessive force. If they go and try to choke somebody or they end up killing somebody, it's a database to keep track of all of that. We need to go back to having that here in our state. Also, when it comes to, you know, making sure there's mandatory body cameras, that's not mandatory. You only get that in certain cities. Our state needs to be properly funding that to do that. Also, it is a shame that when 2020 is not mandated that we have police that have to live in the communities that they work in. It was a court case that happened because of what happened in Cleveland, that police said they didn't want to have to live in the city they worked in. How do you police people but don't want to live with them? Imagine if somebody said, I want to control your house and tell you what to do, but I don't want to live here, but I just want to show up and then leave out. Mm-hmm. So these are the things as we talk about reform, that's how we have reform. Also putting more money into mental health services for our police. They need it. They need it. That job is stressful and we still have to take care of them. And also equitable hiring. We just had 93 cadets that just was hired in Cleveland and we only have one woman and one African-American. Cleveland is almost 50% Black. Why aren't we hiring more Black people? So we need to figure out some equitable hiring practices to bring more people of color into this, because it's a subculture that keeps people from not even being able to get through that process. But then also we need to bring in more civil police review boards that allows people to have a check and balance system, that you and I can sit on a board and have a check and balance system about what the police are doing too. We need all of that here. So if we want to address the protesting, we need to address the concerns of the people. And that came from the concerns that those people are protesting about.
Thank you for your response.
We have a question about, are there any issues that really should be on our radar that might not be at this time?
Let's see. I just say the long-term effects of this pandemic, and the long-term effect on this pandemic is not just going to be the basic health situations, but just life as we know it, how government happens. And some of the things that we really need to be concerned about is the connectivity issues within our state. And as we talk about, some schools will not be returning back to that. They'll have a new normal of working from home and making sure that all children have access to internet. I got very emotional when I was talking to my superintendents, and they were telling me about students who had to sit around a bus that sits in a parking lot so they could have access to internet. That should not feel like a luxury in 2020, that our students do not have access to internet when they have to have it. Also about schools only giving out one Chromebook for families. They have 4 kids at home. How's one child gonna share a laptop? I'm not even willing to share my laptop with anybody because everyone needs access to that. But we have not invested those type of funds into our education, invest into our children when it comes to the need for technology. So those are things that are going to be has to be on our radar, about making sure that, you know, internet is considered as a utility. Just like during this pandemic, we made sure that people's lights and gas, they couldn't get evicted, but your internet could get turned off. And if you're talking about telehealth, everybody's having these telehealth appointments, you have to have internet. So this needs to be a priority, not just for our state, but for our nation, that we have to make internet a utility, not a luxury.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's great. Are there any bills right now that we should be aware of?
So House Bill 13, which actually will expand broadband, that just got passed out of the House. I was one of the co-sponsors for that. And I'm so glad because we need to invest. Now it's gonna be a little pushback because everybody's gonna have to have like $1 extra on their electric bill. I think it's about every 2 months you'll pay about 50 cents. But what is 50 cents when it talks about everyone having access to broadband services? So we need to build that infrastructure within the state of Ohio.
Thank you. From Marcia Silver, it appears as though she'd like women to support Dr. Acton and thank her for her service. It appears as though she might want to take the lead. I guess we'll talk to you offline, Marcia, but I think that's a great idea as well.
I think we missed a question earlier.
Did we?
From
I'm sorry.
Keisha Nickerson. She says, congratulations on passing House Bill 285 and House Bill 461. And what are your goals and what are the changes that you hope to see from these?
House Bill 285 was a big win for all Ohioans. When we talk about the state of Ohio, that we don't invest enough into public transit. So when people have their license suspended, how do they get to work? How do they get to school? How do they get to the doctor? And since, the minimum wage is not a livable wage, we have to make sure that when things happen to people, that they have a way to go back into safety. So the driver's amnesty program helps people when their license becomes suspended. If you make underneath a certain amount, if you are a veteran's pension, it allows you to have a program option to be able to have that option removed. And sometimes those suspended license fees can be up to $6,000. So we need to get everyone back to working legally. Also, it's an opt-in program where you automatically get enrolled into the program if you are eligible. So you don't have to worry about going to an amnesty clinic like we had before. So this is just gonna have so many people on the road driving safely, because if people are not legally able to drive, that's mean they don't have car insurance. So if they don't have car insurance, they're driving and they hit you, then they're not protected. So we need everybody here in the state of Ohio driving, because we do not invest into our public transit. We are the 49th worst state when it comes to investment into public transit, but we're the 14th highest when it comes to the amount of ridership. That doesn't make any sense.
Thank you. Shiloh, I defer back to you.
Yeah, we're at about 20 minutes after 9. We can take a few more questions if you have them, but I just wanted to share with you, first of all, I want to say hello to our Matriots board member, Holly Martins. Holly can wave at us. Hi, Holly. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Holly.
And I wanted to share with you our goals for 2020. I mentioned to you that we are in the process of interviewing 88 women for our endorsement across the state. In 2018 and 2019 combined, we backed 109 women, and 64 of them are now serving in office. So that's a 59% win rate that we're very proud of. And we backed 15 women, 11 of whom made it through to the general election from the primary. And so we are hoping to put maybe as many as 88 more women into general election. As I said, we'll announce those in July. Additionally, we are looking to have members in 44 of Ohio's 88 counties, and we're right on the precipice of that goal. We're at 43 counties. Jefferson County, most recent to come on, that's Steubenville, so we're very excited about that. We would love to have you think about joining us. We need 775 new members in the year of 2020 in order to continue to put money into the campaigns of these women who share our values. And we are looking for 12% of our current membership, which is now 1,414 strong men and women across the state of Ohio. And we now have contributors in 20 states, most of whom have a tie to Ohio in one way or another. we're looking for 12% of our existing members to give more in 2020 than they gave in 2019. And this is how we work on our big, hairy, audacious goal of 50% women serving in Ohio elected office by the year 2028. And that is just 9 short years away. So together, we get this done. And our memberships start at $100 and go all the way up to the legal limit of the law, $13,000 to $13,292. I've just posted into the chat, or I will post into the chat, our join link, and I'd love to have you think about a monthly membership or an annual membership so that we can continue to support people like Representative Brent and continue to grow the number of women who are serving in Ohio office. That is our only goal. I would like to thank Representative Brent for spending an hour with us this morning. And really, I appreciate so much Julie and Pam for leading our conversation. And I'm so delighted that all 44 of you came with your questions and ideas and praise and really thoughtful ways that you're asking to be a part of the solution. So thank you for joining us. And I hope you'll continue to follow the Matriots PAC.
We thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.